for those of you who don't know me, this is Jay Byers, and CEO of the Greater Des Moines Partnership. And just wanted to let everybody know that we're thinking about you. We know it's tough times out there, and at the Greater Des Moines Partnership, we want to be as helpful as we can. So putting together webinars like we're doing today, and all the resources that we've been putting together and getting out on a daily basis, we hope that you found those helpful. And please let us know if there's other things that we can do to be helping you moving forward. And you're going to be seeing a number of new things come out from our shop here in the upcoming weeks as well too. So it's my pleasure today to introduce a very good friend of mine. Debi Durham and I have been close friends for now more than 15 years in a number of different capacities. She has done just a tremendous job at everywhere she's been, whether it was spent her work in Sioux City, where I first met her, and definitely with the state, with Iowa Economic Development Authority, and now Iowa Finance Authority. And, you know, in tough times, people look to leaders for reassurance and for vision and for confidence and for strength and resilience and calm. And that's the type of leader that Debi always is, and we've seen it more than ever here in the last couple of weeks. So thanks, Debi, for making time for us today. Thanks for what you've done with you and your team to put together some really great response efforts for the COVID-19 situation, and specifically the Small Business Relief Program, but other things as well, and the guidance that you're giving to the governor on a daily basis. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Debi, and again, thank you, Debi, for your leadership and your friendship. I just want you to know how much I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you, Jay. I wish we could spend more time in person these days. This isolation is tough at times. All right, so let me just begin by talking about, I want to talk to you about some of the things that we're doing both on the recovery or the responsive side, and then really talk what we're also looking at towards the recovery end of this. In all my years of economic and community development, I've never experienced a black swan event quite like this at this scale. Certainly that's reaping havoc not only on our individual lives, but certainly on our communities as well. Our businesses and their employees have been launched into an extraordinary new reality, a reality that, quite frankly, there are no roadmaps and there's no instruction manuals on how we are to navigate this. What I do believe, though, is what we can do and what we should do, and I think what we are doing is we can act swiftly and we can act with purpose. So first, let me begin by saying that I have immense confidence in the leadership of our governor, Governor Reynolds, and those first responders that were activated from day one. And those first responders are agencies like the Department of Public Safety, the Department of Human Services, Homeland Security, Emergency Management, our National Guard, that were really working around the clock. Once we were first identified that this pandemic, quite frankly, was going to impact Iowa, as well as what we saw with our fellow partners around the country. Then it was only about 2 weeks ago that really the Iowa Economic Development Authority, the Iowa Finance Authority, Iowa Workforce Development, the Department of Revenue, that we really began to come together and saying that we needed to create some kind of response. We needed to identify where the gaps were going to be. And when I say gaps, because we knew that the federal government was going to do some kind of emergency package, right? That was to act as a stopgap and to act it somewhat as a stimulus package. We also needed to be very connected with them because we wanted to make sure that whatever we did in our efforts to act swiftly and to act purposely didn't create unintended consequences with the federal package, right? So we didn't want to see duplication of benefits, or whatever we did would eventually supplant what the feds do. And so we worked very closely with our federal partners. We followed everything there was to follow. That when we did our programs, I feel really assured that what we're doing will not interfere or create a hardship on those that are coming for the federal package that is currently being launched in our community. So with that said, what we looked at was we had two main objectives. Our two objectives were, and those objectives remain the same today, The first objective is to keep as many people employed as possible, right? One, for a variety of reasons, but we just don't, we have to be able to sustain our unemployment system. Even though I will say that Iowa is in a much stronger position than many states that I'm hearing about today. That, our fund is very solvent, and we have always been very conservative in the management of our fund, and that is boding well for us today. So the first thing was to keep as many people employed as possible. The second thing was we knew we were dealing with a liquidity and cash flow issue. And so the governor's office and us worked on a plan to say, what if we could inject not a stopgap measure for those consumer-facing businesses that have, quite frankly, been hit the hardest, that were forced to close by civil authority. What if we could look at some kind of stopgap until those funds flow, knowing that there is always a gap? And so what we did is that we developed a small business grant relief fund and tax deferral, because the governor's office wanted a one-stop shop that businesses could look to us for grant dollars, but they could also say, we would like to defer taxes as well, even though that's still a Department of Revenue decision. I don't want anyone to get excited that I have any authority to suspend taxes or defer taxes. It's still a Department of Revenue. And so that's how we launched it. Now you have to also understand, Jay, as you know this full well, this is a population of our business community that we do not serve in any kind of scale at all. So we're talking taking a program with, an application process, a review process, and propping up in a matter of days, unheard of. Now, at the same time, I'm also like the governor, and everything the governor is doing right now and every decision she is making is actually based, it's in a very measured approach, and it is based on constant flow of data that she is receiving from all different sources. And so we wanted to make sure that whatever we did followed the approach and the leadership that Governor Reynolds has set before us. So I reached out on day one to our friends at the University of Northern Iowa, our Institute of Decision Making. As you know, Jay, we've worked with them for years. They do our labor sheds. They help IWD and us with labor sheds and many other analysis. So we reached out to them to say, I need data. And so we launched a survey that ran for about a week. I think when we shut it down at the deadline, we had about 13,500 responses. And it's not perfection in the sense that we're asking people basically, what is your sustainability, right? What does this look like to your business model if this is a duration of 30 days, if it's a duration of 60 days, or if it's a duration of 90 days? What are the things you're doing? And what other tools are you looking for assistance? So at the same time that we're setting up on a parallel path, this grant stopgap program, we're also getting real live data from you and I to see that we're making a difference. What amount should that look like? What number of employees should we model this after? I will also say, to compliments to our friends at UNI, that our survey has quite frankly gotten the attention of many other states and economic development organizations that wanted to borrow the survey. We even have places like the University of Chicago that want our data. I'm not exactly sure why, and we're not releasing our data at this point until we have a better understanding ourselves of what it's saying. UNI is in the process of basically, evaluating the data to give us that point in time. And then we are going to go back in the future and activate another survey so that we can constantly be getting that pulse, if you will, of our business community. And the survey surveyed everyone from single proprietors, nonprofits, to our largest employers. So it was very comprehensive in its approach. The small business grant, as you know, we set up, it was for 2 to 25 employees. It was a maximum of 25,000, very simple application. What we were doing, how we're evaluating, and every one of them will be scored. We're evaluating on a need score from 1 to 4. This is not, again, perfection. This is not the same level of due diligence that you would expect from us for our programs, because this is triage time, right? This is what we're doing. And so you have to also understand the mindset that I've had to work with my team on, because my team are professionals and they are good at what they do. And that's why we get glowing audits, and you know, that we dot the I's and we cross the T's, and we do our level of due diligence before we put any tax credit or any cash in circulation from one of our programs. There's just simply not time to do this. We're talking of 13,000 plus applications that came in the day we closed it down. Again, a population that we're not used to dealing with. And so, so we are doing the scoring. The plan is to have that done by Friday. But let me also say, in the midst of all of this, I have probably 6 people here in this building today. So all of my team are working remotely. The good thing is, in government, we were already planning for this. So the good news that over 70-some% of our staff already was equipped with laptops. They are already required to take them home every night in case some disaster happened. And so we're certainly testing what that means to work remotely. So we're also propping up this and scoring when there's really very few people here in this building. And we've had to reach out to others to help us. So those awards, we're hope to get the award letters out on Tuesday. We're still working, as you know, as you can only know, that imagine that we have a huge gap from the original amount of money that we allocated. We're working with the governor's office and on how to relinquish or release more money so that we can serve as many. In addition to that, we also looked at our targeted small business program, because it's an infrastructure we already have. And it's through that we're taking care of most of the single business owners, the single proprietors that were not qualified in the grant fund. And so we're seeing that grow as well. So that's what we're doing on the response side. So it's kind of 3-phase, if you think. So it's really responding, which is triage, right? Which is dealing with the emergency in front of you. And that doesn't include all the stuff we did by the eviction notices that we worked with the governor's office to stop during this time for our IFA side of the house, or foreclosures, and anything that would have an impact of individuals' lives, or whether it's dealing with us still having the recorder's office make some kind of accommodation so our real estate industry can continue to function. We're just working at this on so many facets of the economy. The other part of what we've been doing, and really, again, parallel paths, is we've been working on the recovery plan. What does that look like? And how does that look in capital? And so I'm in the process of putting together a document for the governor to start thinking about the things that we need once the emergency part of this pandemic is behind us, and that we are starting to see the economy open back up. What things do we need to put in place for our innovation platform, for our industry, for capital expenditure, and like capital flow? And so those are some of the other things that we're working with. We also set up it's a page on our website, iowabusinessrecovery.com, and then we also have one for iowahouseandrecovery.com for IFA. And this is everything that touches our page on the business side is really intended to be something that touches business. There's all kinds of great websites out there on how to deal from a public health point of view with the pandemic. We wanted something that is real time, that we are changing, really hour by hour, to stay as up to date as what resources are out there for businesses that are looking for assistance at this time. We also have an email, businessrecovery@iowaeda.com, that we are staffing. I have to tell you, it is heart-wrenching. Again, we're not used to serving this population of our businesses, and the calls that my team is taking it is just, there's nothing else to say. It's just simply heart-wrenching. People that are afraid they're losing everything. It's just the emotional and mental toll. And so our team is dealing with that, and they're dealing with it with tremendous grace. But staying focused on what we can do in this situation to move us forward. And so we have a plan. We're working the plan. It's an ever evolving plan, as you know. I am in daily conversations with the governor's office, if not hourly at some days, and with IWD, with our friends at Revenue, that those of us that are involved in this economic part of this equation are staying in touch and we are united. I've also done, I did a call with stakeholders around the state, different industry sector, EPAs. I've met with obviously all the economic development folks in tourism and Main Street, met with the tech industry, met with all the financial institutions, so that we're staying in touch of what we're seeing at that community level, so that our responses can be certainly meaningful to them and as swift as we possibly can. So I'm going to pause there, Jay, and see if you have some thoughts or questions, or there's others that want to know or information that you want to share with me at this time.
Debbie, I'll go ahead and sort of monitor the Q&A here too. Brian Hemaseth has asked, scoring done by Friday. Did I hear that correctly?
You did hear it correctly. I'm going to give my team a break, but we actually hired another company called Mapsco that came in, and they've got 30-some people that'll be working through the weekend on what we do not get done on Friday. We still do, because, you know, we still obviously have to make sure that we're still doing things according to good government principles. So once we award on Tuesday, we're going to do them in tranches as we have funding. Again, I'm working currently with the governor's office she knows the unmet need, to see if we can fund them all. So we will do tranches on Tuesday, and ask people when we send it out. Basically, it'll be a very simple two-page contract that they'll send in, and then it'll be sent off to the Treasury to get paid.
Thanks, Debbie. Next question is from Kylie, and the question is, do you feel we're reaching minority-owned, non-English speaking businesses? I'm concerned about that cohort.
Yeah, I do actually, but I think we're doing that more from our targeted small business group. You know, we opened up a separate pot of money, and that is for minority businesses, female, military with disabilities. And so we do know that we're doing a tremendous outreach there. I think of yesterday, we had about 2,500 applicants, and we have that information going out through several networks. So yeah, I do think that we're doing a good job. So they can still come through the small business grant relief, or they could have. I mean, obviously we have shut that down. Or we still have open until April 10th, I believe, the TSB portion of it. And we left that up there because we still have to get people certified at that process. Even though we're trying to help people, we do have we still have to qualify them from their program. So we're doing that on parallel paths. So yeah, I feel at this time, we're based on what I've seen on just a sampling of surveys, I believe that we've reached populations.
Thanks, Debbie. Next question is from Eric Burmeister. Hi, Eric. How will Iowa Finance Authority distribute the housing funds?
We don't know yet. I mean, obviously, we're still trying to get our arms around that. I mean, I heard yesterday that our Cdbg allocation is going to be about $14 million, ESG about 9.5. We're still trying to figure out from, you know, all of our federal agencies what kind of stipulations we're going to have on that, and how creative we can be. What I can tell you is this, what I've told all my team, that don't just go down that this is how we've done it in the past. This is how we've distributed money that's come in under other disasters. Let's use this as an opportunity to say, we know what the needs are. If you were creating something from scratch, what would that look like, right? And so let's use this time to not stifle creativity, but to encourage creativity and innovation. And so I've really challenged our teams to say, we want to be able to look at this differently. We are looking at other funding, again, for rent assistance and some of those things that we know are going to be coming downstream. So we have an entire team that's working on those as well. There is we do have an iowahousingrovery.com, www.iowahousingrovery.com page set up as well. And as soon as we, launch programs, we'll be putting that information there. But we'll stay in contact with our stakeholders. We don't create programs over here in a vacuum. Again, we do it on data. We do it by listening to the constituents that we're serving. And so we welcome that input as we begin to work through what some of those new recovery programs are going to look like.
Thanks, Debbie. Lots of great questions coming in. Next one is, Debbie, what's the timing of receipts of the funds once award letters have been sent to applicants?
Well, I'm working that out with DAS this very day. We've created it, and I wish you could see all the flow charts we have going on over here on whiteboards. We did a flow chart because, you know, one, we have to get the application, the contract sent, get that sent back in, then it goes to accounting. So we're working with DAS to see how much of that, how many steps I can remove from the process. And again, it also depends on how much money that we are able to allocate to it, and we'll be working on that, I'm sure, through the weekend. But I would say that once the contracts get back in, and again, they're pretty simple, I don't know that surely someone should sign them and just really send them back in, then it's probably, you know, probably 3 days or so before checks will actually get sent out.
All right. Great quick turnaround, Debbie. I think that that's really important, especially how that program is working with the SBA loans. So great job on that. Next.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Jay, I wish we could do it quicker, but I mean, you know, we still have, I mean, we still have to show a certain amount of due diligence. I mean, it's just, honestly, I can tell you that I have never seen our agency move so quickly. So I know it's not soon enough for some people out there. I completely understand, but please know we're working around the clock. Our team is on shifts, as well as, again, hiring outside firm to help us.
Understood. Next question, Debbie. The SBDC is getting a lot of inquiries from businesses who missed the application deadline. Is there going to be any extension or reopening planned in the future?
At this point, no. And I'm going to tell you why. This was never intended to be this was intended to be a 30-day stopgap, Jay. We do not have resources to do that. It was intended to do that until all the federal money started opening. From what I understand, like the employee paycheck protection piece of SBA that's going to be done through the lending community around the state, which I could not be more pleased with. I think they're planning on getting those out or starting to visit with clients as early as tomorrow. And of course, all along, people could have been applying for the emergency grants. So no, the plan was only to be a stopgap. Now, I'm not saying we won't do some kind of other intervention or recovery program in the future, but we're going to, first we're going to monitor what's happening to find out where our gaps are once again, right? And so if we do something, it won't look like it may be something different, but the answer is no, that we're not. This particular program was supposed to be for a very, very limited time to meet a very special need. And those consumer facing industries that quite frankly were forced to shut down, those are the ones that are going to receive priority, Jay.
Thanks, Debbie. Next question is from Alex Pearlstein. Alex, long time no see. Alex helped us draft our Regional Capital Crossroads Vision Plan. So Alex, thanks.
Masterful.
Oh, thank you. And Alex, thanks for joining us. His question is, are you seeing different issues for rural versus urban communities and businesses?
You know, honestly, at this point, I'm not being able to distinguish the difference because we're dealing with very, very small businesses at this point. And so that seems to be pretty much the case, whether it's in the urban center right here in the heart of Des Moines or whether it's in our smallest rural communities.
Got it. Next question. Kim Didier says, I want to congratulate IFA and IEDA for your efforts to support the heart of our communities, those consumer-facing businesses. I would like to know how the other standard programs that IFA and IEDA are administrating may be impacted. Will there be delays in processes for these otherwise typical programs, applications, deadlines, et cetera?
Correct. Kim, great question. First of all, we did send a notice out to all of the clients that we have on our innovation platform. That's everything from demonstration funds all the way to Propel, and we have suspended all of their payments and interest for a period of 90, I think until the end of June, and we'll reevaluate that. We did the same thing with our TSB grant or loans that we have out there currently. We have suspended any payments and interest for a period of time. On the high quality job side, we will deal with those case by case. I know there's been talk about, extending things like the 260E. And of course, again, we are working on what that should look like across the board, or whether we deal with them on a case-by-case basis. But yes, we are going to be making certainly any concessions that we can make to keep people employed again, and to keep companies, the liquidity issue addressed at companies.
Got it. Another question from Eric. Do you expect any tenant-based rental assistance?
We're working on it, Eric. I think that is something we pulled out. The IFA team shared with me, I guess, what we did back in the 2008, 2009 era. So we are looking at some kind of tenant assistance, and yes, I don't know what that's going to look like, and we're still figuring out what funding will be used for that. But absolutely, it is definitely on our radar screen, and it will be a priority.
All right, next question, Debbie. Can or will the state share applications and awards for the Iowa Small Business Relief Program so that local entities can better understand the needs in our communities?
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. So it's interesting. I already had somebody reach out to me and want to know what our appeal process if they don't get a grant. Well, let me tell you, there is no appeal process. This is agency final action. We've created a program. There have no rules, right? We did it under basically the governor's emergency provision that was imparted to her by the legislature. There's not going to be a repeal process. We're still working through what's going to be made public. There's a lot of obviously confidential information on these applicants. So we're trying to sort through all of that. Yes, there will certainly be stuff that will be made public, obviously, but how detailed that's going to be, we just don't know at this point what that's going to look like. So we're working through that with the AG's office as well. We'll share as much information as we can. I would almost guess that the information that we got from the UNI survey, once that data is done, is actually going to be more meaningful for all of you in your communities, because it did have all 99 counties represented on that as well. I think that's going to be more meaningful information than this, but we'll certainly develop a protocol of what we're going to release with as part of this application. I'm sure it's going to be more aggregate kind of information.
Thanks, Debbie. I think that will be very, very helpful. And we're happy to share with our information with you guys as well too, as we have been. So
yeah, I appreciate that. I know that you guys, UNI has looked at some of the surveying that you've done, and so there's been some. I think Iowa City did a survey too, and we're gathering all that information.
Excellent. Alex, with another question here, sounds like an Alex question. Are there any other programs from other states you're keeping your eye on to potentially inform Iowa's efforts?
We're always monitoring other states. To be honest, I'm not sure I've seen anything out there that is really any different than what we're doing. A lot of them have done loan programs. Some of them have called them forgivable loan. We talked about that, but let's be honest, I'm not going to go foreclose on a small business, if they don't pay it back. And again, I didn't want a loan that's going to show up on their financials as they go to the bank and get other money. So, at the end of the day, we came down, it is a grant, right? We're not going to call it forgivable. We're not going to make them jump through. So we're not going to do a compliance on this, Jay. We just, again, don't have the staffing. And even if we did, is that something that is really a good use of our time? And then what is our remedy going to be if there's a default? And that's not something we're going to do. So that's why we very simply said we're going to call it what it is. This is a grant. When the money, we're going to do as much due diligence as we can on the front end. It is, again, not perfect, knowing that. But once it goes out, it goes out.
Debbie, maybe you already answered this question, but do you think that what you have allocated will meet the needs of those who have applied?
What I can tell you is what I have allocated right now, and we are putting more money in from resources. We're looking within programs that I don't think we're going to utilize here at IEDA by the end of our fiscal year, which is June. No, we do not. But I have shared what I believe the gap to be after going through 2,000 of them as a sample. The governor, it's her intention to do whatever we can to fund them all if we can. So we are in the process of working through that. I will tell you, Jay, I might, because you're going to hear it anyway. I did take out all the nonprofits. Those are in a separate pool. We don't have enough money to do that. Now we're going through those with a different filter, and those that touch COVID-19 responses, such as daycare, anything that's doing some kind of meal service, anything that would be a homeless situation. We're pulling those aside to see if we can find emergency funds through CDBG and other funds. So those will be triaged separately. So what you're going to see as we did our filtering, that again, it's going to be those consumer facing industries that were really, or businesses that were asked to close their doors to, you know, stop the pandemic spread, that you're going to see us give the greatest priority to.
Makes sense. Thanks, Debbie. Next question from, looks like Curtis Brown from City of Urbandale. Is there any chance that communities and or regions may be able to receive survey results from the UNI IEDA survey aggregated for our communities that could be very helpful in designing local responses? Thanks for what you're doing.
Oh, thank you, Curtis. Yeah, I would think so. So we're gathering all that information. So the intention is, if you go to the www.iowabusinessrecovery.com, it talks there about the survey, and there's an interactive map. So on the map, it tells you how many came from what counties. And so as we get more information, you know, we'll put some of it on our site, but absolutely, we're happy to share as much as we can share and dissect it as much as, you know, as much as we have data to do it in any kind of, you know, sampling kind of way.
That will be very helpful. Thank you, Debbie. Next question from Tim. Have you looked at potential impact on IRAs, and is an extension possible if receipts fall short?
IRAs. Are we talking about retirement IRAs?
That I'm not sure. Tim, do you want to sort of fill in that question, and we'll come back to that?
Yeah, if we're talking about retirement IRAs, honestly, that is not something that I've been engaged in at all. So I can't really answer that.
Okay. Next question is, how will this affect co-op advertising programs for workforce or tourism?
Well, I have to tell you, I think all of that is on hold right now until we get to the point. As you know, I shut down our welcome centers for 8 weeks, or maybe you don't know that. And we'll have to revisit that at the end of those 8 weeks. But right now, you know, we're not, in fact, even the housing conference for IFA that we we're not going to confirm our reservation for that in the fall because we just don't know, right? So right now, all of that stuff is on hold.
Got it. Hey, we're going back to Tim's question.
Okay.
And IRA is Iowa Reinvestment Act. We should know that because
Oh,
we helped write that.
Oh, how could you and I not know that? Here I'm thinking IRAs, retirement pensions. I was going down that route. So, well, to be honest, this is Debi Durham's opinion. I do not see how that survives when the legislature has asked us, when they come back, only to tell them absolutely out of our agendas for the department, what do you need? And it needs to be something quick. So I think they're going to get in and clean up their business and get out of there. I don't know how that survives this legislative session, but that is my personal opinion. I've not had any conversations with anyone on that, but I don't know. Jay, do you disagree?
It's a great question, and maybe the question is more geared at how do we think that this current situation is going to impact the currently approved IRAs. So anyway, I think that the legislative question.
Oh, the reinvestment. I thought you're talking about the Invest in Iowa or the Reinvestment Act. The people that have reinvestments like your hotel downtown. Oh, you know, we'll probably have to look at extending those. I don't think I have the authority to do that, but I mean, we'll absolutely have to look at extending those. I thought you were talking about the Invest in Iowa Act with the penny sales tax.
No, yeah, well, I think that's a great question too, but that's more of a political question that we're not going to be able to solve today, probably, right? So
correct. That one I don't see surviving the legislative this time, but I could be wrong.
Although I will say, moving forward as we look at stimulus and looking at raising a sales tax, maybe that 5/8 maybe can be used for some of that sort of stuff, just as a thought. So
Yeah. Yeah, I do think that because there's a lot of kind of a stimulus thing that the Treasury Department is looking at that's probably not really on anyone's radar right now that may be able to accomplish some of those things, some of those initiatives like that going forward on the recovery side too. So I think we have to be looking down the road that there may be some other assistance that can deal with some of those water quality issues and some of those community quality of life things that we were talking about. But as far as the reinvestment district that was relying on the sales tax, I think absolutely that we'll just have to figure out how to extend it. And we probably will need some kind of legislative authority to do that.
Yep, great question, Tim. Kylie, another great question here. And, Debbie, you're all about sort of full-scale offense. And as we sort of look towards recovery, looking ahead, do you see any potential areas of growth and competitive advantage for Iowa as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, I do. I think it's on the bio platforms. If you remember our taxonomy plan that we talked about, what were the four main things? Precision agriculture, but the other one was vaccines and immunotherapy. I think there's a huge opportunity for that. Biomedical devices. I mean, our 3D printers are printing things for shields right now. We could do parts of ventilator parts if need be. And so bio-based chemicals. So I think if you look at that bio, I think we need to make really significant investments in some of that infrastructure. We're learning also some of the resources that we have here. I mean, you've got the vet diagnostic lab at the university, Iowa State University, that can do rapid testing, right? And so they're working with the state, our state testing lab to protocols. Even though they can't do the testing, I don't believe, at Iowa State right now, they can certainly help with the protocols. There's all kinds of things going down the road that we need to look at investing in. The good news about all of that, Jay, is we had already identified that, right? It was already an area of focus. And I think it just, particularly on those bio platforms, it's just up front and center. And I think giving the legislators some real live examples of why investments in this space makes so much sense. So absolutely, we've seen that. Manufacturing 4.0 that we're doing, and even though we're in the midst of that, we also suspended that effort until later in the summer. Now's not the time to be going out and interviewing our manufacturers. But everything we're doing with Manufacturing 4.0 is exactly for this kind of situation, right? Because the economy, particularly in those essential service economy, we feed the world. And somewhat are, whether it's the steel producers we have here, we have to be able to allow them to continue to function. Why that Manufacturing 4.0 is even more imperative now that we get that done than before. The good news, what I see is it's not like we hadn't already identified that. It just, I think, just puts it in center stage. There's not really been anything I can tell you, and I think this is somewhat gratifying, that I've seen that says, wow, we should have been paying attention to that, right? So we have plans. We know what we need to do. I think now it's putting it up to the center and using this as an example, as a point in time that we can point to and say, this is why these investments absolutely have to be made. And it gets back to the broadband deployment. Have we ever, really, here we are. We've got 200 plus staff here between IEDA and IFA. And, all of them are working at home and we're not missing a beat. But not everybody can do that. Those that don't have internet access, right? And so we have to figure that out. But again, initiatives that this government has already been working on and had already pointed out as a priority. Again, this just shines a spotlight on it. And I know they keep telling me to quit moving. It's like I can't stop talking with my hands, and I'm sorry. I'm going to have to maybe change to a stationary chair. I'm having trouble not moving.
Well, you're doing great, Debbie.
Thank you.
Next question is from Alex Holland. This is very similar to the previous question, and see if you have anything additionally to add. But looking forward towards recovery, what programs, initiatives will IEDA consider pursuing to help small and rural communities diversify economically, especially those that may lose their primary industry as a result of this crisis?
Well, I think it's everything we just talked about. We're going to follow the plans we have. We're going to follow the ed tech plan. We're going to follow the bio plan. We're going to follow the manufacturing 4.0 plan. And those plans are every bit, if not more relevant now than they were when we started them. And we're going to look for all kinds of resources, not just state resources, but whether it's foundations or whether it's other federal agencies that we can work with to bring those plans to reality. So we're going to work the roadmaps that we have already developed.
Great, good answers. We are going to move to Tiffany from our team. Thanks. Hi, Tiffany. Thanks. We're not working in the same office either, as you can imagine. So thanks for all you're doing, Debbie and team. This is a time when we are seeing a lot of innovation in response to the situation. Can you please share some examples of innovation you are hearing and seeing from businesses from across the state?
Well, I mean, let me just say that I had, Winnebago and Flex Steel and H&I down in Muscatine reach out saying we sew things, right? We're willing to divert our team to sew masks and do whatever we can do. Or, you've got the University of Iowa working with a group of manufacturers on injection molding that are making parts of these shields for our medical community. So that's what we're seeing, are these inspiring stories of industries that are repurposing their workload, right? That are saying, this is not our core business, but this is what the economy, our state needs, this is what our nation needs in this time for PPE. And so that has just been extremely heartwarming to see that. My heart aches for these frontline medical workers. My daughter is an ER nurse, right? And left a medical position in an office that was very protected to go back to the emergency room because that's where she's most needed. And as a mother, I couldn't be more proud of her. But as a mother, it terrifies me, right? Because they're on the front line. And so when I see our industries stepping up, saying that, we're going to put our stuff aside and we're going to do what we can to protect our healthcare workers, because that's been the concern all along. And as this governor has been so measured about what she shut down and when she shuts things down, it's all to protect that medical system, right? That we don't have an overrun on it. And again, I think she and that team that are at that command central making those decisions on an hour by hour, day by day basis, my heart of gratitude goes to them because they're making good choices, and industry is doing their part to help and do what they can do.
Great question and great answers. And I think, this is important too, that as all of us continue to hear those stories across, the region, across the state, to help share those stories on social media, to share what's happening with, if it's across the state, that whole hashtag DSM or Iowa Strong, and in our region, DSM Strong as well too. But again, it's important that we highlight those positive, optimistic stories and inspire other industries to do the same.
Yeah, and I just love what you're seeing teachers do with the drive-through parades and people reaching out to those most vulnerable that are isolated and still having that human contact, even though it may be, across a window. Yeah, it is heartwarming. And you're right, Jay, we have to show that side because you're seeing the best of humanity here, right? Played out every single day in our communities.
I totally agree. And, Debbie, you always talk about innovation, creativity, and it's never been more important than when we're dealing with a situation like right now where there is no playbook. So, and again, great job you and your team for showing that creative spirit. I see Perry over there too, and he hasn't posted any questions, but I've never been on a conversation with him without any questions. So I'm expecting at least one from him here. So moving down here, and this is perhaps more of a suggestion, maybe to both Debbie and to the partnership as well. So as SBA PPP funds for technical assistance become available, it'd be extremely helpful to have funds identified for small businesses to utilize for training for QuickBooks Online, very much needed and could be implemented immediately. And maybe that's just a call out to us to be able to provide some of those training opportunities, maybe through future webinars as well too. So we will take note of that. And that's just as an open invitation for all of you. We are trying to put together webinars through Zoom and otherwise as quickly as we can on any topics that we think are helpful. So that's a great idea. And if any of you have any other ideas on things that we can put together quickly and harness those resources to get out to all of you, we're very open to doing that. And we're trying to provide all of these at no cost for not only our members, but for our friends across the state too.
Well, and actually that is a great suggestion. And I can tell you, we're seeing that right now, particularly in the targeted small business group. I mean, half of the reason it's taking us so long to get through applications is they are just not ready at all with information. And so we're having to get them set up on some kind of, because we have to have some kind of data on income, right? And so yes, I think that is something very needed for some of our very small businesses out there.
All right, next question, Debbie, and this is sort of a practitioner's question. Economic development is such an in-person, meeting-based, relationship-based enterprise. How do you envision your team's work changing based on what might be a new normal for trips, conferences, et cetera, for months to come?
Well, I think it's like this. I mean, even though you're seeing us do, really prop up these new initiatives that we're doing in these short period of time, we're still doing high quality job projects, Jay. In fact, we just had a Zoom conference with a prospect yesterday that hopefully they'll have a high quality jobs application come in the next 2 months. So we're still doing it. The difference is, you're right, they would have been here and I would have been hugging them. And so, my hugging, I think I'm the one that's struggling with all this, right? I'm not hugging my children, not, husband. I mean, it's, so it's different, but business is going on and business will continue to go on. And, but yeah, I think we've learned that we can probably do a lot more without personal visits. But I'm the person that still likes that personal contact. I'm looking back for the day that we can all be together again.
Debbie, here's a big virtual hug for you.
Yes, thank you. I know. It's so, in fact, even at this, we have this ops center here in the boardroom. There's about 3 of us that work through here every day. And, we're even having to stay distant. And, one of them received some really bad news the other day about someone they knew who got the virus. And, my first instinct, Jay, is to, hug them, right? But you can't. And so that's tough. But we can still be here for each other, like doing things like this.
So this is, shows the importance of putting these together. Kim, who, by the way, was my classmate for Leadership Iowa, has responded. DMAC Business Resources would be happy to work with us on getting that training up and going. So Kim, let's make it happen. We're happy to partner with you guys too. So thanks to DMAC for that. Next question. Next is also a comment. Sire Ethanol Plant in Council Bluffs has launched a hand sanitizer line, and talking with them today regarding their distribution plan. I think we've seen that from some distilleries as well. So I think another that great example of being able to pivot and being able to respond to current needs, and we've seen that with other industries as well. So a great example.
It is. And, we actually worked with the federal governments to do some FDA relaxation on that for the ethanol. And believe it or not, ABD is helping to deliver a lot of that product to hospitals and industry where it's needed. So look at the creativity that's happening here. When Steve called and said, Debbie, I've already got, a distribution system in place, and we go to every county and every pretty much every community. And so ABD has stepped up to deliver a lot of that product for us.
Absolutely. All right. Going back to Tiffany here. Debbie, what can we do to support you and your team at this time? Any calls of action for all of us to help you be more successful with what you're doing?
Honestly, I don't think right now, other than just ask people to be patient. I know Beth would say the same thing, Beth Townsend, if she was here, regarding IWD, the volume of calls and emails that we're all getting. I know in her call line, we will respond to people. You just need to give us some time. I finally shut down our phone line at 5:30 every night because our team didn't know when to stop, because they want to serve. That's what the nature of their heart is, to serve Iowans. But my people need breaks too. We need to make sure they're taking care of themselves. First and foremost, my responsibility is to them. and making sure they're safe and not overburdened. So I think it's just be patient, and we are listening, and we will respond. It just may take us a little longer to do that.
All right. Next question is from Zach Mannheimer. Zach.
Hey, Zach.
Long time no see, Zach, and thanks for all the great stuff you've done for our community over the years. Just want to let you know how much I personally appreciate that too, and thanks for all of your great engagement across the state and across the country. So his question is for Debbie. Is there any discussion to work with the Iowa Communication Network to get more assistance for broadband to the parts of the state lacking it as we move more towards online meetings like this one? Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. There is a master plan. I mean, there was already legislation, I think it may have already passed, to give more grant funds to the OCIO, who's going to be obviously the agency will be the leadership of all that. But I can tell you that all the infrastructure has been looked at from a state perspective and how it can be best utilized in today's marketplace, and certainly again in light of what we're dealing with right now. So there is a master plan. It is a priority of the governor. It was a priority of the governor before this. It's now obviously even more so. So yes, all assets are being looked at and how they can be deployed and used in a more creative and innovative way.
Great question. And Perry coming in with his question. All right.
I would be disappointed if he didn't.
I know, me too. So a little more technical here, Debbie. So here we go. Debbie, can you give us any idea of the magnitude of the spending you're talking about for the grants, et cetera, specific dollar amounts at this point, roughly? I know you're still looking for funds, and what is the current gap monetarily between all the requests and what you have for your 1-month program?
You know, Perry, I would expect you to ask that question. The answer is I'm not going to answer it. Do I know what the gap is? I think so. Based on the surveys that have been surveyed today. But the reason I'm not going to put it out there is because I want to make sure I have all the data before I do that. But let me tell you, it is significant more than what we obviously originally talked about. And we are doing everything. We are being very, all of us are being creative on how we can fund as many of them. So all that information should, hopefully I will have ready for you first part of next week. How's that for an evasive answer?
We are getting close to our hour time frame.
Wow.
There have not been any addition. I think we've answered, I should say, Debbie, you've answered all the questions. So why don't we just go into a quick wrap up? And I guess from my perspective, Debbie, thank you so much for your time and your leadership. And it's great that so many of our colleagues, not only here in the DSM USA region, but across the state have joined us and asked some very thoughtful, insightful questions. So thank you for that. You know, this is a unprecedented time for all of us. And there's a lot of challenges out there, but as Debbie said, these are the times that bring out the best in all of us, and we need to lean on each other. We're all in this together across the state, and again, our communities and our states looking to all of us for that leadership, and we need to step up and provide that. So Debbie, thank you for your leadership, and any closing remarks from your end.
Well, first of all, just thank you for the opportunity. I think it's important that we stay connected, that we continue to listen to what the needs are, but you know, we're here. We are listening. We are being innovative, and we're being creative, and we are going to get through this. And I think we'll all be stronger on the other side because of what we're seeing. And I think we all have to remember that we all have something to contribute, right? No matter where we are, no matter what our means are, we can all make a difference in someone's life. And now's the time to do that.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. We are going to be delivering lots of additional programming, some of which is on the books already, a lot of which is in the works. But again, to all of you out there, if there's anything out there that you think we can put together that would be helpful, please let us know. We're designing new programs every day. So again, thanks for what you guys are doing. Keep on keeping on. We appreciate your leadership. We appreciate your vision. We appreciate what all of you are doing for your communities. And as Debbie said, we all can do something every day. And what we're doing is making an impact, and we will get through this together, and we'll be stronger on the other end. So thanks for what you're doing. If the partnership specifically can be helpful to any of you, and you want to take this offline, feel free to call me anytime, or any of our team members, and we'll do everything we can to assist. So thanks, and I will look forward to seeing you next time.